So, welcome back everyone, and welcome back for part two. I know some people will just be making their way back from various fridges across the country and so on. But we'll make a start anyway. So earlier in the day, just so we don't miss any poetry, I'll do some talking. In the lead up to the launch, I did put a little tease out to say that we would be announcing the poets that we would be publishing for next year. Each year we have an open submission window, usually around the autumn time, for a short period, around 4 weeks. And during that time, we get lots of submissions. This year we had around just about 150 submissions, which is wonderful. It's a credit to the press. It's a credit to all the writers out there who want to share their work with us. Those were whittled down to a short list of 25 and then whittled down further to 6 new poets and 2 existing Maytree poets, where we'll be publishing second collections with them. So it probably doesn't mean an awful lot to the majority of the people here tonight, but it certainly means a lot to the poets who we're publishing, because I asked them to hold off letting anybody know until after the 3rd. So they've probably been busting with excitement, wanting to let everybody know that they're going to be publishing next year. So in no particular order, the ones that we will be publishing next year will be second collections from Tim Taylor, who's with us tonight, and Colin Bancroft. Both Tim and Colin have previously published with Maytree, and it's always a joy to welcome poets back to the press to publish second collections. And new to us, and also with us tonight, Anthony Christie. We're really looking forward to working with Anthony, and Jane Kite. We've seen Jane somewhere amongst all the people tonight, so we're looking forward to working with Jane. Tom Clucas has popped in tonight as well, so Tom Clucas will be publishing with us. Sarah Hemmings and Kathleen Jones. And finally, and we have to, this is the only one where we'll mention the title, because bizarrely we had 2 poets with exactly the same name, which caused slight confusion when we were doing the shortlisting, because we shortlisted and I went back and then I thought, this isn't the one that I shortlisted. But so we're going to be publishing Christopher James, but it's Christopher James who sent in the Storm in the Piano, just in case there's a Christopher James out there who thought he got a rejection last week and wondering why I'm saying his name now, but it's a different Christopher James. So caused me some confusion, but there you go. So that's the list for next year. Absolutely, we're thrilled to bits with those poets. Quite a diverse collection. That's what we try to do. So if you did send a submission in and you didn't get chosen, don't feel too bad, because as I say, we had a short list of 25. We could have published all 25, but we do try to have a little bit of diversity in there as well. So again, really looking forward to it. And if you're still interested in Maytree, and you don't want to wait until next autumn to send a submission in to us, we will, as I mentioned earlier on, be opening the Three Trees Portfolio Award in early spring. It's going to be very, very early spring, because I'm a bit of a one for dates, and there's a really good date coming up next year, which is the 22nd of February, because it's the year 22, so it'll be 22/2/22. So I thought that would be a great day to launch the second, get it, Three Trees Portfolio Award. So from the 22nd of February next year, you can send entries in, and as we mentioned, it is still obviously one of the best, but one of the most cost-effective pamphlet awards. It will remain £15, but we will also be doing a low-income option as well. So look out for further news about that as well, because as I say, that's part of the philosophy around the Three Trees publishing, is that we want to open it up and to as many writers as possible. So there'll be a low income option as well, which we believe will invite more and more. And every entry helps us work with writers a little bit more, be a little bit more adventurous. We are only in our third year as a press, so as I said, to be getting 150 submissions in our open window is wonderful, and is testament to the poets that we've published so far. So that is the big news. It's all in our sort of monthly newsletter, which doesn't go out monthly because I'm a little bit tardy with regards to that. But if you want to sign up to it, you can do through the Maytree website. Please don't send me an email asking me to add you to the list, because I'm not allowed to do that due to GDPRS and all technical things like that. But you can sign up to it and give me permission to use and abuse your email by sending you a nice newsletter every so often. And then you'll get the full details, and we usually send it out when we're trying to sell you something, or when we have some news. So that's that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you back to the star of the night, and Susan, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to read two poems at this point, and they're two that strike a lighter note. Quite a lot of the poems in the pamphlet are quite sad, but these two I think are a bit more fun. So first of all, like many of us, my mum found as she got older that names kept eluding her. This poem is called I've just seen Mrs. You know, she lives near the or is it you must know what I'm talking about. She was always ready to laugh as her words kept getting replaced by this one all-purpose sound. In the garden, the grew well, close to the other, already in flower. On TV was her favourite actor. Often anonymous, the things around her were kept in order, nothing out of place. Life went on from mostly she didn't forget our names. Although some of the poems about my dad in this pamphlet are quite melancholy, he had a great sense of humour, and I certainly get my love of wordplay from him. He invented a character called Zopopopoulos, who I think was supposed to be a Greek shipping magnate or something like that. Anyway, so here's Zopopopoulos. Dad, who came to your shop today? Zopopopoulos. Always him, always wanting new glasses. And what does he look like? I taught my dad drawing. A circle for the face, then eyes, 2 dots for the nose, a mouth with teeth, tufts of hair sticking straight up from the head. Dad said Zopopopoulos had a beard on half his face. Pencil clutched in his fist, he tried to show it to us. The face had a smile on one side, a toothy grimace on the other. He told us about more customers, Schmierl Dondik, Schmoll Yendel, real people like Mr. Courtauld. He couldn't draw any of them. Instead, he was proud of his drawing of a pipe smoking a man. We like Zopopopoulos best. Thank you. And I'm now looking forward to hearing the rest of our guest readers.
Thank you, Susan. And moving on to our guest readers. And first up is Veronica Aronson. And Veronica is a co-founder of one of the organisers of the Teignmouth Poetry Festival. Her work has been published widely in literature journals, online and in anthologies, and she has won and been placed in several competitions. Her first collection, Nothing About the Birds is Ordinary, this morning by Indigo Dreams, was put forward for the 2020 Laurel Prize. So over to yourself, Veronica. Thank you. You'll need to unmute.
Hi, Veronica.
Thank you.
There we are. Sorry, I was saying thank you, David, for organising this event, and thank you to Susan for inviting me. I've loved the poem so far. Thank you so much. And Susan, your first love does it every time I read it, and hearing you was just wonderful. So I'm going to read some poems from Emily's Mothers, which is my collection about being adopted. And the first one is called My Longing to Have Ash Blonde Hair Begins. I'm standing in front of the fire. Mother's second pair of eyes stare down from her portrait above the mantelpiece. There's no warning fanfare, just a clearing of Mother's throat. We have something to tell you. We're not your real parents. Your mother, 17, not married, couldn't keep you. The words float like fluff blown from a dandelion head in stilled air. As the seeds settle, I feel no grief or gratitude, only relief. Now I understand why the three of us are only tacked together with cotton, not stitched in silk thread. I ask the colour of my real mother's hair. And so that was the first poem in the collection, and this one is towards the end, and just to explain that Agnes is my birth mother. It's called On Dartmoor. Because Agnes insists only silver birch twigs will do, we leave the track, stroll onto the open moor, all the time trying to find landmarks to retrace our steps. And because when we turn back, we see the wind has whistled every hawthorn into crowns of thorns, and our landmark rocks look like every other rock. We look around to find our bearings, watch the sun's pregnant belly emerge from behind a cloud, and notice the quality of the silence. And because we'd been talking about yearning, it isn't the kind of silence you hear on entering a church or standing alone on a mountaintop. No, it has more body. Somehow, all our longing has let loose its sweetness, and for a few minutes, we're lost in it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Next up, we have Chris Waters. Chris is also a Devon-based poet with 4 poetry collections out under the Mudlark imprint, the latest being On London Clay, which is a sequence of a family memoir pieces rooted in the South London of his childhood, exploring themes of loss and survival stretching back to his Victorian ancestors. He calls poems lifelines and excerpts, and he has chosen to read the opening piece, Ancestors. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you very much, Susan, for the invitation to read tonight, and congratulations on your pamphlet and on your prize. I like your opening poem, Immigrants, very much. So would like to respond to it with, as David said, this piece called Ancestors from London Clay, which, like your book, is also a gathering in of family lifelines. The poem arose out of a walk with my son along the Pilgrim's Way from Canterbury to Ashford, where my forebears hailed from. And in the census speak, where they were mentioned, they're referred to as ag labs, which just translates as agricultural laborers. It sounds a bit more dismissive, I think, ag labs. So this poem is called Ancestors, Agricultural Laborers, Kent, the 1800s. Earth steppers ourselves, making our own tracks. Sometimes we might glimpse them through leaf light in a clearing, treading between felled timber and a crackling fire where their kettle spits. Or perhaps we look down from the tree line to where they bend low in a harvest field, scything, gleaning, stooking sheaves, late August sun prickling their necks. Will we catch their murmur as they squint to sense our future shadows passing by? Why not summon those two, drain cutters in their master's claggy field, clabbered hand to foot in Kentish clay, a slashed pumpkin grin across their faces as they brandish their unearthed trove, a pair of talks gleaming brighter than any sheaves in August sun. Light their candle, pilgrim, then pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastic. So I think we've got some, obviously, congratulations to all the poets being published next year. I think that's well said. Stunning, Veronica, stunning from Rosie. And it has more body. Fab, Veronica. Beautiful reading, Veronica. And striking detail from Helen Boyles, and lovely to hear that fab poem, Chris, from Rebecca Getting. So some wonderful comments coming through. So next up we have Erica Denham. So Erica is a friend and admirer of Susan's, and I think we've got about 46 other friend and admirers of Susan's tonight. So Erica attends the same poetry workshop in Exeter. Erica's loved being an English teacher, and what could be better, books and kids. So Erica was all set to start a doctorate in contemporary poetry, and then thought that she'd spent a life analysing other people's writing, so it was time to concentrate on her own, and good choice. So now Erica is back loving writing and her 3 little grandsons. Books and kids again, Erica. So over to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for inviting me. My first poem is about my grandfather. My grandfather sings to us at Christmas. A tall and upright man, he gestures as he sings, leaning into his audience, stressing the words perfectly, enclosing the family. Close enough for us to smell his coal tar soap, where the mountains of morn sweep down to the sea. This is his performance. Suited and graceful, he moves like Fred Astaire, light-footed, elegant. His song tells a story, an old Irish tale of a love left waiting, where the mountains of morn sweep down to the sea. His voice is clear and strong, and tears fall. The aunts hide their eyes and look for a hanky. The children smile at the adults and snuggle like a basket of puppies. He sings of the mountains, and he sings to us. He sings to us all, where the mountains of morn sweep down to the sea. I see him clearly still, 50 years on. His breath brushes over me as he passes, his voice powerful and moving. He's close enough to touch now as he finishes his song, where the mountains of morn sweep down to the sea. Thank you. My second one is about being sleepless in the night. When sleep is slow in coming, I picture the babies. One on his back, arms above his head like a porn star, an elbow exposed and nacreous, head angled to one side, and the breath. Then the other, flat on his stomach, arms and legs stretched like a starfish, his bum higher than his head. And the newborn, coiled, taut as a nautilus, hugging his new life to his body, tiny in his crib. Throughout the night, the soft draught of their breath lulls me. Thank you. And the last one is called Separation. This is like the time the consultant looked at me and said, "I'm sorry." This is like that bereavement. This is like that absence. Then, in an empty cathedral, I sat in a pew and wept. Seeing a pram, I crossed the road. As a father tended his child, I looked away. My heart clenched with longing. No more soft bodies wriggling against me. No more milky smell at the nape of the neck. No more fat knees asking to be kissed. Now the silence holds the little boys' laughs as they climb into bed with me in the early morning, their sticky kisses rich with honey, tangled, unruly. Those unborn babies of mine, bodied in my little grandsons, distant stars. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So on to our next. Now, I just need to know, I've just let another Susan in. So I just need to know, has Jenna arrived? Just unmute and shout up, Jenna, if you're here.
Yes, I'm really sorry, Chris, to be late.
Right, no, it's no problem. It's just, you've obviously missed the earlier joke, but everybody's coming in as Susan, so I didn't know whether it was yourself. So really pleased that you're here. Anyway, so our next reader is Jenna Blues, and Jenna has published 6 collections of poetry. Her award-winning collection, The Underside of Things, is that came out last year, has raised £1,200 for charity. So that's fantastic, well done. Her poems appear in many anthologies and magazines. A Woven Rope, published by V Press, came out in March this year and is being sold in aid of Freedom from Torture. She'll be reading from a couple of poems from this one. You can purchase both of these collections from her. The last poem that she'll be reading will be Her Shadows Borrowing My Clothes. So over to yourself, Jenna.
Thank you. Right, from A Woven Rope. Feral. Curled in the womb, tight as a drawstring purse, you sway in the swing of my stride. Blood beat, heart beat, drum beat. Muscles will birth you soon. Slide your slippery blood-streaked body into a torrent of air. You will open your pink mouth and roar. Knead my full breasts, latch my nipples with hard gums. You will lie kitten soft in my lap, chasing a dream. Night after night, you will prowl my sleep, circling your lair. In a way, I'm sorry that came after your beautiful poem, Erica. I'm sorry about that. And the second poem is the last one in the book, which was about birth and then the problems of midlife, and then what happens afterwards. Her shadows borrowing my clothes. Elbows on the table, face propped in my palms, I catch a glimpse of her, reflected in the glass, as I sit in Café Rouge waiting for my meal. Familiar gestures laid down in the strata of my life are reappearing in its weathering. I'm saying things she used to say to me, phrases embedded, intricate as ammonites. So much of her is in the bone of me, a shadow trace against the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. So I was just ensconced in Ian's message in there. So blimey, Erica, that last one, so moving demands recovery time. So I was obviously recovering. So
Yeah.
Jenna, you were giving us some recovery time, but Helen says sensory vividness, Jenna. So
Yeah.
just picking up on some of the chats there. So thanks ever so much for joining us. And moving on, the last but not least, we have Sue Prophet joining us as our final guest. So Sue also has a website, owlmagic.com, lives by the coast in South Devon. Her poetry explores the beauty and mystery of the more than human world and our complex human relationship with it. She has an MA in English Language and Literature from St Andrews University and an MA in Creative Writing from the University of Bath Spa, and has been published in a number of magazines and poetry competitions. Her first collection, Open After Dark, was published by Oversteps in 2017. Her second, The Lockpicker, Palewell Press, came out in February this year, and she's currently working on her third. So welcome, Sue.
Thanks, David. And thank you, Susan, for inviting me. I've loved tonight. It's just been wonderful. And I feel there's so many family members from so many different tribes here now. And I'm going to finish the guest speakers with two poems, one about my brother, which Susan wanted me to read, and one about my mum. So the first one is called Milk Round. You stand at the kitchen window in the dark hours, 5 o'clock in the morning, boy outlined against black glass. When the lights come on at the farm opposite, you open the back door, run across the front garden, through the archway into 50 years ago, where the milk float waits in the yard, with its narrow rail at the back where you'll stand, clinging on as the farmer drives from door to door delivering. I see how you've done this many times, your child's hands sticking to cold metal, your muffled outline receding up the lane. Wonder what welcome the farmer gives you, gruff at the best of times, who had no son of his own. Whether his wife ruffles your hair, offers you warm milk before you start the long juddering trundle into the village, hopping on and off at the shouted instructions, 2 pints here and 1 cream, 3 yogurts, don't forget the empties. Your face set in concentration, your breaths small curdles in the air. Whether he smiles at you when the job's done, and you smile back without saying anything, but look up into his eyes and see him seeing you, you helping, you with a job to do. And the second poem about my mother is called Still Frame. If I could, I would stop it here, outside the front of your house. Late afternoon sunlight stroking your hands, holding a trowel, planting pansies in the bed you could reach without bending. In their tray, purple and gold faces, and your face lifted up, smiling as I drive away. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Fantastic. And that ends our guest readers for the evening. And just before I hand you back to Susan, and I'm sure she will thank you all personally, but from myself, from Maytree, I would like to send a heartfelt thanks to all the guest readers. It's been absolutely wonderful. Such a variety of poems, and the messages coming in have really summed that up as well. So some really wonderful words there. So now over to Susan, who's going to finish the evening reading from Last of the Line. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for your readings. I've been really blown away by them. I think they've all been so moving and just wonderful. So coming back now to my poems. Here's some about my dad. I don't find it easy to write about him, just as I didn't find it easy to connect with him when he was alive. As he got older, he became more depressed and more reclusive. This poem is called Saturday Lunch, and the word Shabbos in it is the Sabbath. Saturday lunch was Dad's burnt offering to celebrate Mum's working day. After Friday night, there was no more Shabbos. His blocky, dark-haired hands guided ours, pushed blackened onions round the pan, slid stringy shavings of Friday night chicken onto plates that gleamed with grease under the raw strip light. After I'd escaped, when I went back, he'd slip away, still in his dressing gown. It didn't matter now when he got dressed. Sometimes he'd ask, "When are you going home?" The helpless guest, I watched Mum cook. She didn't burn the onions. "Don't worry, dear, Daddy didn't mean it. You know he doesn't like having strangers in the house." My dad played the piano, not as I do, not terribly well, but with a love for certain pieces. This poem is called Of Foreign Lands and People, which is the title of the first piece in Schumann's Scenes of Childhood. My father's thick fingers fumbled through the piece, sounding the first few bars again and again, the rising arc that fell each time into the same gentle yearning. The music behind the music enfolded us both in homesickness for another place we hadn't rediscovered. He'd start once more, this time get as far as the questioning second tune that settled back into nostalgia. Perhaps he felt it too, the inarticulate pain that comes when melody twists the heart. We never spoke about it, never crossed the border into each other's land. I knew some things about my father, but there was a lot I didn't know. Missing Pieces is about that. You had your stories, how you rode an old bike with no brakes, how you and your friends tied door knockers together with string, knocked and ran away, how you couldn't solder a spectacle frame, but passed with honours anyway, how students from your polytechnic marched through the streets in Ragweek with a stuffed carrot on a pole, how you played practical jokes more cruel than you understood in the telling. From Mum, I heard your parents treated you unkindly. You were bullied by other boys. Your brother-in-law didn't like you. Your misshapen legs plagued your life. Before you married, you'd had a cupboard full of empty bottles. You'd been a communist like your brother, till Mum, fearing McCarthy, got rid of your books. You were an atheist, but always a Jewish one. What I knew of you wasn't the stories. Long country walks on summer Sundays, football and cricket in the garden. Your eyes glazed with tears as you listened to music. The way we kept missing each other. I'm just noticing the time, David, so please tell me when you want me to stop. Part of the next poem, Father and Daughter, is a dialogue, And Ian has kindly agreed to read it with me.
Ready when you are, Susan.
You start.
I thought you were going to read the title.
Oh, sorry, it's just called Father and Daughter.
In his long underwear. It says in the paper, students think.
I'm a student. That's not what I think.
But it says students think.
And what about mysticism?
Ties, dressing gown tighter. Rubbish. It's all just sex.
Is there nothing but this? Points to cup of tea.
Karl Marx turned Hegel on his head. Dialectical materialism instead of dialectical idealism. It's scientific.
Drinks the tea. I don't like the taste.
You mustn't be disappointed if you don't do well. Not everyone can.
But why not me?
You're clever enough, but you're no genius. You mustn't expect too much.
What do you live for?
I don't know what all the fuss is about.
His wedding night. At 41, he'd never done the thing before. My mother, younger by 6 years, older than he'd ever be, told him how it went. He always said to us, I don't know, you'll have to ask Mum. The story came from her. He once began a letter to me, Dear Sir, and didn't notice.
Sue, what's a nymphomaniac?
He points to it in the paper. I tell him. He carries on reading.
Well done, you.
The final poem about my father is called Beside the Point. This was the last time I visited him before he died. I can't remember when you first stopped mattering or when I stopped mattering to you. Maybe my unkindness became too much, so that when we saw each other, you learned to walk away and leave me talking to Mum. That last time you were sitting in the bed I slept in when this used to be my room. Mum had brought you a boiled egg you didn't want to eat. There was football on TV. Even that didn't interest you now. You were looking far across the street, beyond the houses and the railway line, to where you were going when you'd finished being here. My bright chat rattled past you like one of the trains, slow and loud in case you wouldn't hear. You'd never taken much notice of railway noise. There's only one poem in this pamphlet about my brother. We were quite close when we were children, but sadly, he no longer wishes to be in contact with me. The silence. I had a brother once. No, he's not dead, we're just divorced. It happened a long time ago. Something about a flat and money, our inheritance, the material part. A family thing, just like the other thing, when our two aunts stopped speaking because of their house. It wouldn't have happened without the silence, him not telling me what he wanted me to do. It didn't come straight away, the break, only after Christmas Day in his house. We were drinking port. I should have known, he said, what the silence meant, how he'd been depressed. I should have understood. I wished I could make it better. I didn't want to be filled full of this black tar. I said so. It upset him. Next time I went there, the house was cold. He was with his daughter. I sat downstairs. I sent him one card in December for birthday and Christmas. And the last 3 poems in the pamphlet are about my Auntie Tilly. And I hope I've got time to read them. As I'm looking at my script. Is that okay, David? They're called Tilly's Lipstick, One More Visit, and The Last Parent. Tilly was my mother's sister. After she and her other sister fell out over the house, she moved near us and became very much part of the family. Tilly's lipstick is scarlet, exuberant, like her bright clothes and green gobstopper necklace. Her perfume hits you in the nose. Her voice carries across the room. You can tell she sings. It's loud. She talks with her hands, and that's loud too. I'm Jewish, she says, and proud of it. She loves gossip about the stars, bakes wonderful too sweet cakes, will do anything for us. She'll badmouth anyone, Kanena Hora, with a good heart. One more visit. Your face was pallid, liverish, its colour less living than the way I thought of you. Your voice that used to carry your Yiddish insults across the room was dimmer. Your unseeing gaze drifted unanchored past Neil's and other residents' lives. You seemed to know I was there. The early morning phone call wasn't a surprise. The long drive was the same as always. I'd never seen you lie so still. They said you'd have to be moved. I didn't want to disturb you. I kissed your forehead, touched you, went to the office to see to things. It felt so quiet without you. And the last poem is called The Last Parent. Your ashes sat at the crematorium, waiting for your niece and nephew to come and lay them to proper rest with your sisters beside the rose tree. You, our third parent, didn't deserve this dereliction. I'd left you there alone, trying to forget what I had to do for you, held captive by my brother's silence. I made myself fix a date. In the black jacket and silk blouse I'd worn to your funeral, I stood by myself on the kindly grass as Hebrew words fluttered in the soft wind. The rabbi sang nearly as well as you. I remembered your laugh, your bright colours, your astounding lack of tact, your simple love. I wished I could have given you back more. The singing stopped. I knelt on the ground, head bowed, mourning the family we once were. The rabbi hovered. I asked him to go. I stayed beside the rose tree, hoping you'd like it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. So if you can hear me, could I just ask everyone just to unmute themselves and just lean forward, unmute yourselves, and just give Susan and all the guest readers just a big round of applause, just so we can just
Very
keep
good. Thank you very
sound
much.
Bravo.
Really excellent.
Everyone,
Great. Thank you.
So,
thank you so much for joining me.
so thank you. Absolutely fantastic evening. And I think Zoom moments of the year. My first Zoom moment of the year. My Zoom moment of the year was going to be Jenny's cat making a guest appearance. Jenny Osborne, I'm talking about you. So, because I was actually watching my cat attacking something on the window here, and then suddenly your cat. But I think one of the Zoom moments of the year there was that reading of Father and Daughter. I think everybody, I hope everybody agrees with that. If you've not got the book, that's what it looks like on the page, and there's always this ongoing discussion between page poetry, performance poetry. It looks as good as it sounds on the page. It's absolutely amazing. It's like a script, a poetic script. It's brilliant. If you've not got last of the line, get it. I think you'll want it after that. Susan has got many copies. She very kindly ordered some additional copies to our prize winning ones. So please purchase it direct from Susan. If not, and if Susan runs out, you can purchase it direct from Maytree, both online, across the internet, all over. I know it's wonderful going into a bookshop and ordering it, but that's really not financially good for us, realistically. So just purchase it direct from us, and we'll make sure that we wrap it up nicely, send you some freebies as well, so if you want it. So but other than that, obviously, thank you, Rachel, Jenny, Jean, Ian, Veronica, Chris, Erica, Jenna, Sue. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and massive well done, and thank you to Susan for a wonderful reading. And just over to yourself, Susan, just for the final words, please.
Oh, well, thank you, David, for organising the launch. And as I said, just thank you, everybody, so much for your readings. And thank you, everybody, for coming, whether I knew you before or not. And I'm really glad and proud to be published by Maytree, and feel perhaps even more chuffed now to have won the award than I did before. So thank you, David.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to have to end the meeting now. I'm sure there's lots of friends and so on, so I'm sure you'll all be able to get together in cyberspace, so on. But again, thank you ever so much for coming. We had a massive turnout tonight, wonderful. It is recorded, so we'll pop it on the YouTube channel at some point. And thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Night,
much.
everyone.
Bye.
Night. Night. Night.
Bye.